I was devastated. My world was rocked. Every aspect of my life started to shift because now it was focused on this. Testimony is a long time coming. It is something that is definitely one of the most notable experiences of my life. I am now on the other side of it, and I know that God did not bring me through this experience to not use it to share with other people, to not use it to show his glory, to give him praise, and to give hope and encouragement and help other people continue to have faith in the journey of having children and expanding family and creating legacy and trusting God in a promise. Because if he's given you a vision, if he's given you the plan or a word, then he is faithful to perform it. God's word does not come back void. This experience seems so far and so close to my current reality all at the same time. I think maybe it feels a little further away because, to cope with trauma, to cope with, extreme sadness and grief, our mind kind of just puts it in a little compartment in a memory. It stores it somewhere in the mind, and it's not something that you refer back to a million times. I mean, anybody who's been through grief knows that as you kind of learn how to cope and exist with it, it doesn't always recall every single day. It doesn't play like a movie through your mind every single day, as much as it does in the beginning, especially when you're still like actively living through it. This is a long intro. I'm not going to stall. I feel a little, I feel the weight of the experience, but it's not enough to keep me from sharing. So the title of the video is 6 Pregnancies, 1 Child. And it's exactly what you would think. My husband and I wanted to start a family. We are college sweethearts. We've been together since we were 17 and 19 years old, and the Lord knew that we had found each other, and it was a good thing. And so we didn't rush right into anything. We started dating. We took our time. We dated for 7 years before getting engaged and married. And even still, we took our time before wanting to start a family. We wanted to enjoy being married and enjoy each other and this newfound adulthood. We had recently moved closer to both of our families with the hopes that they would be there, with the plan that they would be there when we had kids. And so, go back to 2019 where this all began, and we decided we were ready to have children. And we began to try, right? We got pregnant pretty quickly. Very excited. Within the first few months, we got pregnant, and it was so exciting. It felt like an answered prayer, like this was the right time. I know I was one of those girls who thought she wanted kids really young, and then I realized, no, let's experience independence first. So when we did decide to have children, I was like, oh, yes, it's the time. So shortly after finding out we were pregnant and confirming it with the blood test and going to the doctor's appointments, I started to spot. And about 6 weeks in, we found out we were having a miscarriage. It was really sad. It was a shock because you hear that this happens, right? But I don't think I knew the rate at which it actually happened to most women. So it hit me. I didn't know. We were thrown off guard. I have a great OB, so she was very gentle, and she explained the statistics, and she also explained that at my age, that's okay, that it happens, and that not typically, but it happens a lot of times for that first one, right? And so we accepted it and said, okay, we're gonna try again. We didn't want to wait. We were like, let's go. How soon can we try again? Let's keep going. My husband and I are pretty solution-oriented people, so our mind is just like, what's the goal? This is sad. We'll mourn this, but we're trusting God. Let's move on. And so pretty quickly after that, we got pregnant again. And so exciting. Like, okay, we went through that. We got through that experience. Now let's go. This is our time. And wouldn't you have it that, we're coming to the end of the first trimester. No issues, no bleeding, no cramping. Everything is tested fine. The numbers doubled. And we're excited. We're ready to share with our family around 9 weeks, which we did. It was so exciting to share. Then we were ready to announce, the godparents around that 3-month mark, which also happened to be around my husband's birthday. And I had a whole surprise plan for him. We were going to tell the godparents and just really enjoy ourselves. But I had one more appointment before we did that, and that was my 12-week appointment. Since I had already had a loss at that point, I had a deeper ultrasound, and going to that ultrasound, it was during COVID at that point. And so my husband couldn't come inside. At that point, doctors' offices were really strict about only people who needed to be inside of the establishment could be there. That's something I should note for most of the years of this experience. It was during COVID, so he couldn't come inside oftentimes. And so I went in, and I will never forget this experience. Very excited, went into the room. Because it's a deeper ultrasound, it's like a nicer facility. You have like the big TV screens above you, as well as the nurse who has their own screen, doing the actual ultrasound, but you get to see it in real time, which is so cool because, usually you just have to wait. So she gets right to it, spots the baby immediately. I mean, I'm 12 weeks, right? And silence. I had never seen an ultrasound at this time, so I didn't know what to expect. In terms of like, should I be seeing the baby move or anything? But her silence was so silent that it gave off the vibes that something was wrong. And then I saw her try to do the heartbeat. And if you've seen an ultrasound for a heartbeat, they hit the thing and then you won't hear it necessarily, but you'll see the lines, right? And nothing, silence. So as your X out, try it again. X out, try it again. And then she asked me, have you ever had a miscarriage before? I told her yes. And then she said, I'm so sorry, but I can't find a heartbeat. I do have to do more measurements. I'm so sorry. And so I said, okay. She continued to take a ton of measurements. I continued to watch the screen. It continued to be extremely silent. That's the most blaring memory of it, was how silent it was. And then she finishes and gets the doctor. Doctor comes in. He tells me that it looks like I'm having a miscarriage and that the baby had already passed away a few weeks prior to that. Actually, ironically, around the time that we told our families. My body just hasn't recognized it. And he said, I can go into more detail, or would you like, your OB to go into more detail? I told him I'll wait for my OB. At that point, I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to crawl on my skin. I wanted to get out because there were so many pregnant people in that waiting room. Like, obviously pregnant. So I wanted to get out because now I'm not one of them. Except I am still in the weirdest, sickest way. I remember asking if I could use the bathroom in the back before leaving because I didn't want to use the public-facing bathroom. He said yes. Try to dry my eyes, splash my face so my eyes weren't red. And then I basically booked it out of there as fast as I could. Sat in my car, broke down immediately. I felt pretty guilty because I had a lot of intrusive thoughts about the well-being of that child due to having a miscarriage prior, and I would pray through them. I think I said it out loud once, and that's why I felt the guiltiest. Like, did I cause this to happen by like cursing myself because I said, what if the baby X, insert statement here. Yeah, those are my first thoughts. And then my thought was, how do I tell my husband? Because he's at home, working from home, and he wants to know how the appointment went. He's expecting me to come back with a row of photos. Cried, called my mom, cried, got off the phone with her, drove home. I saw my husband and I told him I had to talk to him about something, but he was in the middle of a call. So I was like, I'll tell you after your call. No worries, tell you after the call. Because I didn't want, he's in the active middle of a call. So I waited. And then I told him, devastating news. And to even wrap our heads around what is a miscarriage. So what happens next, right? Next day, went to the doctor's. She was gonna do another ultrasound, but I was so worked up that she didn't. We just went through my options, and essentially it was either to go in to get a D&C or to allow the pregnancy to pass naturally, which would be, vaginally. She said it would be a little bit of cramping, and she didn't really she said bleeding, but she didn't really kind of walk me through the details of like, do I want to sit on a toilet? Because she did warn me that you may see the embryo, but it was such a surreal moment that I was still in shock. I don't think I comprehended anything she was saying. I didn't think about that. It wasn't until I went on the internet afterwards to research to figure out what that looks like. And then I felt the gravity of it. And that's absolutely terrifying. It was to me, in my mind, to conceptualize passing my passed away child at home, whether on the toilet or I don't know, like, or in a pad, right? Like, what is supposed to happen? Thankfully, our pastors made some time to see us. We went to them and we talked about it. And when they realized that it was a miscarriage, we prayed, because at that time, my body still was not processing anything. By the time we met with the pastors, it was like a week or two later. My body still was showing no signs of recognizing that the pregnancy had terminated. And so we prayed, and prayer moves. So that literally that next night I did actually have the full miscarriage. It was extremely painful. Now that I've had a child, I know for a fact that I was experiencing contractions. I remember feeling the pop. I won't go into too much more detail unless people really want to know what the experience is like, because it helped me to hear people's firsthand experiences. So it kind of let me know a little bit more of what to expect, but nothing can truly prepare you for the actual moment. So then it happened. That was traumatizing. So much blood, the cramping. I'd never felt cramps where it was so specifically working to expel. That's what a contraction does. We're squeezing, the body is squeezing to push the baby out. But I'd never experienced that before. And for it to be for something like this, it was devastating. I was devastated. My world was rocked. That's what I was after that. Devastated. Well, what do you know? I stayed in church. Of course, we have a church home, and it was around that time that I was asked to join the worship team. And after being just down in the dumps, I decided to say yes. My husband encouraged me to, and it felt like something that would take my mind off and help ease the experience, because at that point I was waking up sad. This is really hard to recount because my memory goes in and out on some of these experiences. Sometimes they blur together. Sometimes I remember them all vividly. To fast forward a little bit, we get pregnant again. You hear the phrase, third time's the charm. It was not for us. We had another loss. Wow. This one was unexpected. Got through the first couple ultrasounds, absolutely fine. Everything was looking good. Blood tests looking good. And then I went for, was it a blood test? I can't remember what tipped them off, but they told me I needed to go to, I went from one scan and they told me to go to the hospital. So then I went to the hospital and they reviewed a scan. Maybe that's what it was. They reviewed a scan and they said, oh, you're having a miscarriage. And I remember vividly asking the doctor, because they wanted to give me the shot now that would especially after knowing I had a miscarriage, they wanted to give me a shot that would force my body into going forward with passing a miscarriage, right? It was in my fallopian tube. Oh, how did I forget that? So it was ectopic. And so time was of the essence, because the risk with ectopic pregnancy is that it'll grow and then you'll lose a fallopian tube because your tube bursts and you have internal bleeding, and there's just so many emergency risks. So I had to do something that day in the hospital, and I asked them, is there any possibility that this pregnancy would be viable? Not understanding even the concept anatomically. I was just desperate to save it. They said no, rightfully so. The doctor that was attending, so not the doctor we dealt with, but the attending doctor who kind of comes in, he had no bedside manner. He was very matter of fact. He wasn't caring. He wasn't sympathetic to the experience we were going through. He was just like, you need the shot. I will never forget him. And so he took it right in the butt. Devastating again. But all through this, my husband starts working at the church, just not working but volunteering, doing stuff at the church. I'm in worship team, so Sunday I'm worshiping the Lord with the gifts that he's given me. I'm studying the music, hearing the Bible verses through the music. And I didn't know it then, but being in that was saving my life at the time, because that's when I really started to feel what depression looks like. After that, there were days I woke up, and it's a brief second that you feel when you wake up. You don't remember. You don't know what life is like. You just, it's like a clean slate, and then everything rushes back to you. Man. And then you don't want to get out of bed. And then there were some days I would wake up and I would be like, I'm still here. God, why am I still here? Because for me, experiencing what I was experiencing was like being a walking dead. I was devastated. We're in the middle of COVID. We can't go anywhere. Miscarriage is so taboo. I didn't know anybody in my close family that experienced loss, let alone once, but 3 times in a row. My husband was so sweet. He would go for walks and runs in the morning to work out, and he would be like, babe, please just walk with me. Please just come outside and walk with me, because he just didn't want me under the covers all day. Bless his heart, he was so good. So he would slowly but surely get me out to walk. One day I'd walk. Maybe the next day I was like, no, leave me alone. The next day after that, no, leave me alone. But he would ask me every morning. And then I started walking almost every morning with him. That helped, getting that fresh air, getting outside. Continued with worship team. That helped. Again, still unbeknownst to myself, but to my spirit, it was keeping me. It was giving me the strength to not succumb to the spirit of depression. It was giving me the strength to not succumb to the spirit of self-sabotage, not wanting to eat, wanting to deteriorate my body on the outside so it would match the way I was feeling. So sad. But then I experienced a turnaround. There was one day after church, I was talking to our pastor, and he was praying with us, and I'm pretty sure he stopped in the middle of the prayer and was like, Elite, a baby is not your idol. He said, a baby is not your idol. And I never considered that. I never considered that I was thinking and having this baby, having a child stand before my faith, stand before anything. But when I took a step back after that day at church and really considered it, I realized I wasn't doing anything until I had a baby. That's how my mind was. Everything was centered around, how can I get pregnant again? How can I keep a pregnancy? My mind was either focused on that or the sadness that I had all those losses. And in that time, thank you, God, I made the decision that, Lord, as you will it. So whatever that looks like, because I knew I was going to be a mom. This is something I wanted to be my entire life. So I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I knew yes. The answer was yes. And that's when I decided that, God, okay, until that happens, tell me where to go. I will do your will, because the baby's not the end all be all. I'm more than a mother. I'm more than that. I have more purpose than that. And so, God, if right now is not the time to have the baby, then show me what you would have me to focus on. And my entire life shifted. I started doing music more intentionally, and doors started opening. I will definitely make another video. There's a whole nother video to talk about the way my life shifted, more specifically after I decided to let go of what I only wanted to see and open my mind and my obedience up to everything God had for me. So doors opened. I found a newfound faith, a deeper faith. I remember singing, I want to be tried by fire, purified. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. Not knowing that refiner's fire would literally burn up everything that wasn't serving God. And it did a lot. It took a few years to truly get to the place where I am now, but God started refining me. He started strengthening my marriage in a way that we didn't know it needed, because we had never been through something this hard before together. He strengthened me as his daughter, as my, just me being elite. So being a wife, being a daughter of God, first a daughter of God, a wife, myself, a friend. Every aspect of my life started to shift, because now it was focused on, where does God see me? Who am I to God versus who am I to just what I wanted to see fulfilled, right? And so success. So many opportunities started coming my way that it did start to keep me active. I came out of that depressive state. I wasn't spending every waking day feeling like sadness or replaying the physical events in my body or in my mind. And we got to a point where we were ready to try again. And so we did. And it didn't take long to get pregnant again. And we were so excited, like, okay, God, you have put us through the test and we passed, because here we are. We're still faithful. We're more involved in our church than ever before. We're praying. We're anointing our house. We're fasting, like all of the things that we just, wasn't that we were not doing things, or no, there was things we weren't doing. Let me not lie. But it wasn't like we were deliberately trying to like be disobedient, right? But now that we knew better, we started acting better. And so we got pregnant again, and we were like, this is the time. We're going to keep it close to the chest, keep it very private until we feel comfortable. But we had another loss. It's not funny. It's just, it's not funny. But we had another loss. And oh man, it hurt. What can I say? It just hurt. But we had a lot more faith this time around. And so the sting of the loss wasn't as bad as it was before. It hurt, but we knew we're going to keep going. Like I said, we're solution oriented. So at this point, when you've had 4 miscarriages, I think actually when you've had 3, you were now eligible insurance-wise to go see a fertility specialist. So we're like, let's go see a fertility specialist. Let's check this out. The first ones we went to, not good. It was not a good fit. We didn't like their bedside manner. And I didn't want to do IVF. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted it to happen naturally, right? Another conversation to have, or else this video will be so long. But if there are other women who would like to talk about the experience and what it looks like to choose alternative methods than to just the regular, procreation methods, then I would definitely make a video about it. But we're like, okay, we understand it's something on the books, but let's do all the testing. This is when we just started doing every test we could for both he and I. Tests were coming back negative, negative, negative. We don't see anything here. We don't see any blockages here. These blood tests, your levels are normal. Like your girl was going through. I even got an MRI, baby. We were doing every test. So we're like, okay, God, all these tests are coming back negative. Nobody can tell us why this is happening. So we know we fight not against flesh and blood. It's a spiritual thing. So we continue to pray, trust in God, continue to have God teach us whatever lesson, or open ourselves up like, Lord, wherever you want us to learn from this, show us, teach us, but we trust you. We trust you. We got pregnant again. And this is hilarious because we got a new fertility center and we went to them. We had just found out we were pregnant the same week we had our first appointment. And we told them, we're pregnant, but we're here. So you tell us what we should do, because we didn't know we were going to be pregnant. We'd like to wait it out. Let's see what happens. We don't want to lose our place with you guys. Like, can you guys help monitor the pregnancy, basically? So we didn't do anything. And very shortly, we didn't do anything. I had my first scan and it went great. The baby was fine. There was a heartbeat. Oh, so exciting. And so we're like, okay, see you in a few more weeks. So that was at like 5-6 weeks. As soon as you could see something on the scan, we went in. And it was just me still, because I didn't know that I could bring anybody. I think at that time, COVID was coming out of its way and they were allowing partners and spouses, or maybe because it was a fertility center and that's just, a little more sensitive of a situation, they were letting spouses come. So when I found that out though, when I went back for the 8-week, I was like, babe, you gotta go. I want him to experience. He's never seen an ultrasound before. He could never be in the room every single time. So I was like, this is our time to have an experience and to really set forth this story in such a positive way. He came in. It was that silence that I remembered. But this time my husband was there. So I just talked. I filled the noise of the silence, because I didn't want him to know what the text silence meant at that time. And I also was like, Elite, you can't see the screen, so technically you don't know what it is. But the silence was so familiar that I knew what it was. We go to the doctor's office right afterwards to talk about the scan. She told us we're having another miscarriage. I couldn't speak. I feel so grateful that I had my husband there, because I could not speak. I barely could breathe at that point, because it was like 5 times. Are you kidding me? 5 times? I was shocked. I thought that this was going to be the time. I thought this was going to be the opportunity. This was going to be the testimony. And it wasn't. It wasn't. And this time I had to go now. There was no shot to do. There was no waiting to do. I needed to go to the hospital the next day and have a D&C. Have a surgery. Have them go in and do it for us. So we did. I was numb up until they woke me up from the anesthesia afterwards, and I went into a full-blown panic attack. As soon as they took me out of surgery, I went into a full-blown panic attack. I thank God for the nurses and the doctors that were there, because the way they cared and loved on me was as if I was their family. It was like my world came back, and I realized the reality of everything that just took place, and I was not processing. I was overwhelmed with emotion of the reality that yet again this happened. I took some time after that to, lean on my faith, lean on my husband. We leaned on each other. We loved on each other. We prayed about where to go next. And we went back to the fertility center. And what do you know? That was the answer. We never did find out an actual hard answer as to what was happening. But with the help of this center and the people and the doctors that God put us in contact with, we were able to conceive our son, our baby boy, our firstborn child, full term and healthy. And here we are at this testimony point where he is over a year old, healthy, developing, beautiful testimony of God's faithfulness, a testimony of it's being worth it. It was worth it. I sit in this moment as a mother to a beautiful child that God promised, and I say thank you. because the person I am today is a million times better. The relationship I have with Christ is like this. The relationship I have with my husband is like this. We are so strong. And it's not that we weren't strong before, but going through experiences like this have a way of either strengthening or completely breaking people. I can see how relationships end through tough times like this, but we are close. We are mature. We like each other and love each other. And I can see the plans that God has for us as a unit. Now that we're building our legacy, I see little by little, I can see where God did certain things so that I could be who I was now and be prepared to move accordingly with the different things that are coming my way right now. I give this story right now to show people that the path isn't straight, and you may think a trial is going to be one and done, but it may not be. And that God is still faithful to perform what he said he will do, even when it's the third or fourth or fifth time. I'm encouraging you to not lose that faith. Let my story be a testimony of what not giving up on God looks like. Let my story be a testimony of staying the course. Staying the course, because we could have broke up. Like, God said this was my husband. This is the man I entered a covenant with. What if we decided to go other ways and be like, oh, it's you, right? Or what if we decided to be like, we're done. We're not even going to do it anymore. We're not even going to try. Then there are lives that God has planned for that we were stunting or stalling. We stayed the course, and he has been faithful. There's so much more I could talk about, and there's so much more I could say. So if you have any questions or would like to know more, or you want to talk more privately, feel free to message me. But I am truly an example of God's grace and his favor and his faithfulness. So I love you with the love of Christ. Christ loves you. Man, I'm so grateful. I'll put some resources down below if you have found yourself in a similar position. I'll also say that it was so helpful to us to have a church home. I also did seek therapy for a little bit. It's healthy to have a therapist, and it's healthy to have someone to confide in and talk to. You don't have to be alone. 1 in 3 women experience a miscarriage. And even though the number is much smaller for women who have experienced a miscarriage over 3 times, we do exist. We are out here. You're not alone. It's not your fault. And God still loves you. Don't feel like this is like you're being abandoned. I wasn't abandoned. The Holy Spirit was in and within me the entire time I was going through this experience. So I'm sending love to everyone watching this. And I thank you, Lord, for keeping me through this experience and allowing me the opportunity to share this with whoever I come across. So be blessed.